Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Jacket Banner. I have two very special guests with me today, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
You go first. You can go. Okay. Hi, I'm Annabelle Putman. I am one of the new ag teachers here at Ware County High School.
Hi, I'm Monica Gomez, and I'm currently a sophomore at ABAC studying agriculture education.
So I appreciate y'all making the time out of y'all's day to be here and the long drives that y'all have had to drive to get here. And before we get into the banner, we will have to break the ice. So there's a spinny wheel right there, and if you don't mind spinning it and tell me what number it lands on.
Oh, very good spin. Is it 4 or 5?
I think it's 4.
4.
What's your favorite song?
God. Probably right now, it's probably Where the Wild Things Are by Luke Combs. Kind of stuck on that one right now.
I haven't heard that one yet.
I love
Alright.
that one.
The screw's a little too loose.
I'm more scared for this than I am for the actual questions.
Is it 4 too?
It's also 4.
Oh, wait. It's spinning back.
Oh, wait.
1, I think.
Yeah.
1. All right. So if you had a superpower, what would that superpower be and why?
I know this is going to sound basic, but probably to fly. I want to see what it feels like. You know what I mean? Like a bird soaring through the air. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Saving gas money too. So, can y'all tell me a little bit about yourselves?
Okay. So I a little bit about me. I came from Houston County, so Perry. I went to high school at Perry High School. I showed livestock for 10 years. I did pigs for 10, and then I did cows for 4. Grew up on a family farm, and then I went to high school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think I went through like every job possible. I was like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, no, I want to do that. And I didn't know what I was going to do until my senior year of high school. And I was like, ooh, I really kind of think I might want to do ag ed. So I ended up, I had a scholarship to Auburn. I turned it down, and I went to ABAC, and then I did ag ed, and then now I'm here.
All right. What about you, Monica?
A little bit about me is I grew up here in Ware County, went to Ware County Middle School, Ware County High School, was very involved in FFA, and much like Miss Putman, I did not really know what I wanted to go into. Honestly, I was good at math and science, and I thought I was going to become a pharmacist, but throughout my high school, being in FFA, that's what really kind of changed gears in me. And I knew I wanted to teach agriculture to other people just because so many people don't know what it provides for us. And I think we need to teach others because, it's such an important industry. It's the number one industry that literally feeds and clothes America. So I think it's so important, and other people need to know what it does for them in their daily lives.
Amen, sister.
Yeah, that is very important for people to know. And could y'all tell me, how did y'all's FFA journey start?
So for me, in middle school, I was very shy, but a lot of my friends, they had joined the FFA, and they were like, come to the meetings with us, and I finally joined. The meetings were very fun. We played a lot of games, went to South Region Rally, things like that, and that's where I kind of started my FFA journey. I definitely got more involved as the years progressed. I started doing CDEs, went to Expo, things like that. But that's how my FFA journey started.
I guess mine started really early on in my life. So I have an older sister. She's 3 years older than me. So I saw her get involved with it first. She showed pigs first and went to on those field trips and got to get out of school. And so I really enjoyed that. So I started off in 4-H when I could in 4th grade. And then I did it in 5th grade. I did poultry through 4-H. And then my sister really got really heavily involved in FFA. And I was like, ooh, like 4-H is just like that. I want to do FFA when like I get into middle school. So as soon as I was able to, I signed up for an ag class. And in middle school, started 6th grade all the way through 8th grade, had a year-long 8th grade class, and then every single grade throughout high school, I had FFAs, or ag class, and then obviously if you're in an ag class, you're an FFA. So,
Yeah. So that's kind of how mine started. I followed after her. I seen all the fun things that they were doing, and it was kind of opposite for me and her. I was more of the expensive child, so I was the one that showed all the livestock, and she never did. But so moving on, could you tell me, like, what moment sparked y'all to want to teach ag? Or let me rephrase that. What moment gave you a spark to want to teach agriculture?
I had one. The first thing, I was at a cow show, and I like cattle were my thing. Loved them. I had a kid. We were in charge of feeding our own cattle for that show. So normally our ag teachers would help us out. But this particular show, our ag teachers were like, well, this is like a lesser known show. It's not a super big deal. You guys are going to start learning how to do it yourself. I had this one girl, and her confidence just was down here with fitting. She was nervous to clip, and rightfully so. It's a scary thing to do if you've never done it before. And I had actually gone to a cattle camp in Oklahoma and learned how to do it like by professionals. And so I got down there with her, and I like walked her through it like step by step by step. And I don't know, that kind of just to me like sparked it for me. I was able to get down there and like get hands-on and teach her how to do it. And I was like, not gonna lie, like I'm kind of good at this. I kind of might want to keep going with it. So I realized that I was like semi good at it, and I was like, this was kind of like interesting. And I also like to get out of school too. So I, you know.
So for me, like I said, I was in FFA throughout most of middle school, and I was like here and there kind of a little bit. But once I got to high school, it was really like my main focus. I also did other clubs like Beta and National Honor Society, but FFA was my main focus. And we were doing an event here. I think it was Kindergarten Ag Day, and it was probably like my 11th grade year. And Miss Chisholm left me in charge of the plant booth where all the little kindergartners sat, and I got to teach them about plants and seeds and everything. And at the end of my lesson, like any teacher, you ask if they have any questions. And so I asked, does anybody have any questions? And all the little kindergartners, they go, me. And I think like just seeing how their faces lit up with like emotion and excitement for all these different little questions, like how does a seed move and all this and that. I think seeing that was really like my like spark, where it was like, wow, like I can actually like, you know, be a part of something and change somebody's life.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the moment that gave a spark in me too, because I also want to be an ag teacher when I grow up. And it was at one of those kindergarten and 5th grade ag days, and I'm always in charge of one of the animal rotations. So I have my sheep in a pen, and you hear kids come in here, is that a tiny horse? Is that a tiny cow? And then you got to teach them all about it. And then you'll be surprised because they think, oh, chocolate milk comes from a brown cow. And I remember asking a kid, where do you think milk comes from? And they're like, the store. And I'm like, no, but what animal? And they're like, well, I don't know what animal it comes from. And I feel like that is an important part in teaching ag, to educate the younger generation. So we're going to move on to kind of your college experiences and like your first year teaching. So can you tell me how your college experience have shaped you to the person you are right now, or how it has helped you so far?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I knew a lot about like the agriculture side at this point, but I didn't know a lot about the education side, just because other than like being a student in a classroom, I didn't know much of the teaching portion of it. So a lot of my classes that I've had up to now are education classes and agriculture classes, of course, but it's really the education classes that have taught me a lot, because you look at the different issues in education that we have, you look at how to combat those as a teacher, what you can do in your classroom, what management you can include. And I think that's really what's been more interesting to me. And it's definitely like shaped the way I think about teaching as a whole, especially agriculture, because I mean, agriculture is so versatile, and I honestly don't like know what I'm gonna teach. You know, it's whatever school I go to, what they have. So yeah, it's definitely helped me become more well-rounded as a person.
So thinking back to college, back in those olden days, um, I was always a person who was very like, I had to study, I had to study, I had to study. And I definitely believe that you still have to study when you're in college, because if not, you're not going to pass that biology test. Biology is hard. I I did my big thing in college though that helped me is I was a very shy person in middle school and high school. Now I did get out of my shell more when I got into FFA and like I got an officer role and things like that. But I was still like very like I don't want to like just kind of shy, didn't really want to just branch out. But college really helped me branch out and like get out of my shell and go talk to people. Like I joined a sorority. One of my friends in my sorority, like she's gonna be my maid of honor for my wedding. So like in college, like I think the biggest thing that it changed my life in was definitely like getting out of my shell and going and exploring, because just don't sit in your dorm room, because if you just sit in your dorm room, it's going to be like the worst 4 years of your life. So just don't do that. And then like class wise, I would definitely say kind of along the lines that like you said, obviously we take our education classes, and I can't even remember half of them, but there are definitely some classes that talk about like classroom law and like dates and acronyms, like an IEP, 504. You have to learn all those. Those classes I'm not going to say are fun, because they're not. They're boring. But the ag classes that we get to take as an ag teacher are definitely different, because we get to teach, like we get to learn how to teach in our education classes, but then we get to learn all about plants in our greenhouse class, or animals in our animal science class. So like the diversity of classes that an ag ed major gets to take is a lot different than what a specific person that was just taking an animal science pathway would get to take. So that's, I think, really fun for us in college.
And I will say that at ABAC, I feel like most advisors, they tell you, like, I'm really comfortable with horticulture and plant science. That's like my thing that I know a lot. But they tell you to branch out, because you don't know what you're going to teach as an ag teacher. And I think that's like a good perspective to have, is to just be well-rounded and have knowledge in all subjects, not just one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. It kind of prepares you to be a well-rounded person, because like you said, you don't know what you're going to teach. Maybe you want to teach plant science and horticulture, but you may get a ag mechanics job, and you're going to have to learn how to do that.
And like middle schoolers, like middle school teachers, they don't get to specialize like a high school teacher. They have to do everything. So like they will teach just basic ag unless their school is like specific in other ways. There are some schools in Georgia that are like that. But like a basic ag class, part of our curriculum is we have to teach ag mech. I don't know how to do that. I don't know nothing. We built a birdhouse. So you have to learn like different easy ways. And a lot of our classes in college, a lot of them will help you come up with ideas. But there are those hands-on classes, especially at ABAC, that you do get to take that are very hands-on, like greenhouse.
And like you mentioned, hands-on. Isn't there like clubs at ABAC that you can do that also help you with that? Like I know that my sisters mentioned the horticulture club and stuff like that. So could you tell me, like, how have those clubs helped y'all?
So right now, the ones that I'm going to are the horticulture club and collegiate FFA. They did just recently start a 4-H club, so I think they're fun. I think that's really where I make most of my friends, because, I mean, in class, you can talk a little bit, but really you're just there to learn. And when it comes to the clubs, that's where I can, like, be myself, and, like, everybody has something in common, if that makes sense. Because, obviously, if you're there for horticulture, you like plants and things like that. So, the clubs are definitely, like, really fun, but they also teach you a lot of different things, just in becoming an agriculture teacher and things like that.
Alrighty. Or do you have?
Oh,
anything to add to that?
I guess when we talk about clubs, when I was in clubs, I did horticulture, collision FFA, cattlemen's, then obviously I was in the sorority, and all of those taught me different things. They also gave me really good connections too, because those are going to be the people that you're like working with one day. So all the people that were in collegiate FFA are the people that I graduated with or and now have jobs. So and then also like horticulture and cattlemen's, they'll get a lot of guest speakers. And as a teacher, I could call one of those guest speakers and be like, "Hey, you came and talked to my cattlemen's club one time. Like, do you want to come talk to my class?" And so it does make you get connections like that. So
Yeah.
So, Monica,
Oh gosh.
could you tell me what's like the most exciting or the most challenging classes that you've taken so far?
I'm in statistics right now.
who do you have?
And Lori Pierman.
Oh, never mind.
I will say I was good at math, but when you add so many letters into math, it's just a lot harder than what I imagined. And the biologies too. I've had really hard biology professors, and it just takes a lot of studying. So those are definitely my most challenging classes. And what was the other one? The most
So, your most exciting classes that you've had?
My most exciting class at the moment is animal science. I like learning about animals, all the different parts. I think it's so fun, and you get to experience it hands-on.
All right. So, Miss Putman, how has your first year teaching compared to what you had in mind before?
So you'll get this a lot, especially your last year in the cohort. I guess it's definitely, I don't want to say easier than I thought it would be, but definitely in college, they are preparing you for the hardest days on the job for sure, which is something that I think ABAC goes above and beyond on. And they will preach to you left and right, like, do not overwork yourself. You can say no. You can say no to things. Do not always say yes. And it definitely is going to depend on what school you go to, I think, because if you are at a single teacher school, there's obviously going to be way more pressure on you as an ag teacher than here at Ware County, where we have 4 high school ag teachers. Yeah. So for me, I have 3 other people who have been doing this for 20, 15, and 5 years, and so I have people that I can lean on, and I have Dr. Barber, who's a great CTAE director. But I do have friends out there who are at a single teacher school, and their counties don't support ag ed like it's supported here in Ware County. So I would love to say that my first year has been definitely easier than most. There are definitely still challenges. Like, I do feel like I was prepared for the classroom. I feel like I was very prepared for the classroom. But there are a lot of extras that us ag teachers do, and I feel like that part I might not have been as prepared for.
So, kind of what you were talking about, what have been some of the most challenging moments in your classroom so far?
Oh, goodness. I rant to the officers about some of my classes some days, but I think my horticulture class, they're all great. I don't really have any problems out of them. I guess sometimes the problems out of them is that it is so early in the morning and like nobody really is awake yet. I think that's the hardest part. But I think the hardest thing that I've come across is two separate things. They're completely opposite spectrums. One is I have students who are just like bouncing off the wall. They're ready to go to lunch. They're ready to learn about the day. And I'm so glad that you're ready to learn about the day. But, like, I got to, like, get through the lesson before, like, they are, like, bouncing from wall to wall. And then I have a few, I think 2, that are just, like, it is a struggle to want them to learn about ag. Like, they just don't, they care about ag. They know what it does for them. But they just don't care to learn or do good in school, and that is like a big problem. Like I hope you never see, but it is a big problem happening now in the 2020s. That there's just not a want to do good in school anymore, and I think that's probably my biggest challenge at the moment. It's just like I wanted to do so good in school. I wanted straight A's. Like I cared about my grades, and I think the biggest challenge is like getting people to care about their grades.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I feel like most kids kind of think of going to school like a chore now, and it's not really necessarily like kind of like, oh, I want to go to learn because I want to do this after high
Yeah.
school, and it's more like they think it's a chore that they have to go there.
And it's a
So,
privilege because a
mhm.
lot of kids, like, here in, like, the United States, like, we're
Mhm.
very lucky. And even in Georgia, we're lucky. But, like, there are a lot of kids in the world that, like, don't get to go
Mhm.
to school.
You don't have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
So I feel like we kind of take that for granted that
Yeah.
we don't see. But um, what could you say? I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Like, what hands-on experiences, like internships or student teaching, and or even farm work, how do you think that has helped you so far,
Me?
or both of y'all?
Both of us? Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So, so far I've only done one internship, and that was with GVATA, and it was very fun. It was in Athens. I definitely learned a lot. We got to see a lot of the behind the scenes of how the committees get together, how they plan for stuff. We got to listen in on them voting for different things in agriculture, so I got some insight view of what's going to change in agriculture, education. I think it really did shape me better because I made some connections through there with someone up in Athens, and I'm hoping that I can build that relationship so that later I can maybe transfer to UGA. But yeah, I think internships really shape you as a person, and like it definitely helped me network with other ag teachers and see just how different teachers in different parts of the state are, because I'm just so used to the South region teachers and everything like that, but North region and Central region, they're so different, and I thought it was really cool to see all those differences.
So I guess my most recent, internship was student teaching. I will say, I do think it depends on who you get for student teaching. Me personally, I had a guy by the name of Justin Bennett. He's at Mossy Creek Middle School. You've probably met him at GVATA. Yeah, he runs the whole show. He was awesome. What really helped me out with that hands-on is it was my classroom. There was no, oh, well, it says Mr. Bennett on the sheet. He was like, nope, this is her classroom. I took it start to finish that one semester. If there was anything disciplinary, I had to handle it. There was, and we would do like weekly feedback, like how are we feeling? So I do think it really depends on your cooperating teacher. And if you and your cooperating teacher are not jiving or vibing, switch. Don't suffer through a bad cooperating teacher. It's not worth it because you're not getting what you deserve, and they're probably not enjoying it either. But so I would definitely say, like, my hands-on is like it was my classroom, and so I think that's what helped me the most is because I had that full semester of like teaching middle schoolers. And Lord have mercy, I will never do that again. So, but yeah.
Alrighty, so this is for the both of y'all. So, Monica, when you become an ag teacher, what topic do you look forward to teaching? Like a topic you're passionate about, you want kids to know about this topic?
So I'm really passionate about horticulture and plant science. I love anything plants, and like the CDEs that come with that, like floriculture, floral design, nursery landscape, that's like my thing. And like I did floriculture from like sixth grade until I graduated high school. So it was like a very big thing for me, and floral design too. I just love anything to do with that. Just because, I mean, plants as a whole are so different, and they do so much for us. I mean, like you learn about crops and everything, how like a literal seed can grow and give us food. You know what I mean? So they're so important. That's really what I want to teach. I don't know if I want to teach high schoolers or elementary students yet, but I think I'll definitely find my area once I do student teaching and see how different they are. But definitely something in plant science or horticulture.
What about you, Miss Putman?
So my specialties are horticulture, plant science, and animal science. I think my favorite to teach, though, is probably animal science. Like, I love horticulture, and I do like how, like, you can watch a seed grow into something that you do eat. But I think my heart, like, I just love to teach animal science. And, like, you get to see kids that they're like, you do get to talk about, like, where does chocolate milk come from and things like that. So that's always a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like also kind of teaching kids about, I don't know how to word it, but like not necessarily what's right and wrong, but like what they think and what they know is different. So I feel like that's kind of an exciting topic too. And what I'm always trying to figure out how to word these things. So what skill or what skills do you think are important for an ag teacher to have? So this is kind of broad, but like what skills do you think are most important or necessary for an ag teacher to have?
So for one of my education classes, I had to interview ag teachers, and I chose to interview ag teachers from that taught different grade levels, just because I don't know which grade level I want to teach yet. And I feel like the most important skill that I've heard is learning to let things go, because at the end of the day, your student could have cussed at you. Your student could have been mean to you. They could have made a mistake or something. But every day is a new day. And I learned this from Courtney Renshaw. Every day is a new day. And you have to learn how to let the past be in the past and move on with that new day. Because things can be going on in a student's life and you don't know. You know what I mean? You just have to learn to let things go, and also how to make it the best experience for your students. Just because we are all different people and come from different backgrounds.
Kind of going along with what you said, I think one of the biggest things for ag teachers, or just teachers in general, is like compassion, because again, like, you never know where that child came from or what their home life is like. That is something that we as teachers don't get to see because we don't drive them to school every day. So we never know what home life they come from. Is there a boyfriend and girlfriend? Are they fighting that day? And yes, our job is very challenging to be nice and happy and sweet all day long, because me personally, I am not nice, happy, and sweet all day long. I try to be, but it's hard to always have a smile on your face. But if your students know that you have their backs and you support them, that's, I think, number one, is that, like, they know that you have their back and they're going to have your back, even if they cuss at you or they don't want to do their work that day. I think that's just important for all teachers, is to understand that, like, you have bad days, they're going to have bad days because they're humans too.
Yeah. So yeah, being there to support them, that always goes a long way. And you never know, like, a shy kid coming into your class in 9th grade, and then you see them grow as they become a senior and graduate high school, and you know that you helped them along the way, and you kind of pat yourself on the back. You feel proud of what you've done. So, Miss Putman, is there any strategies that you use in your class to maybe teach kids who don't have an interest in agriculture?
So there's a bunch. I think part of having a basic ag class is you do get those kids who don't always want to be in your class. Like, for example, my 4th block now, I have a lot of seniors, and obviously if you're in a basic ag class and you're a senior, there's no way or that you can complete the pathway, because that was what you were supposed to do your 9th grade year. So I do sometimes get those kids who are kind of just thrown in that class, and that a lot of times is my basic ag classes. So I always start my class out with a question of the day. It doesn't have to be related to what we're learning about that week. It is just a broad question. Like today's was, what is a hoof knife? And we watched a video about hoof trimming, and like it had like there was like pus inside of it, and it exploded, and everybody was like, oh my god. So, and that kind of like gets their attention for the day, kind of go ahead and like sets the mood, like we're in a learning mood today. But I also try to do different activities. I like to do guided notes because some kids, they're just not about a lab activity. Like, they're not going to want to go touch the cow. They're not going to want to go put the corn in the grinder. They're not going to want to do that. So I do try to have my guided notes and my lessons because you've got to teach. Like, that is your first job, is to teach. And then I love to have, like, projects because there's a lot of kids who love projects because they like to do it on their own. They like to research on their own. And a lot of times, which you'll learn, is that there's a bunch of different learning styles. And so a way that some people learn is by doing it and researching themselves. So that's one way I do a lot of projects. And then I do a lot of hands-on activities. So drawing, making grits out of whole corn, going out to the ag center, looking at pigs. Like, one of our upcoming things is when we get pigs here at Ware County in October, we're going to start talking about, like, animal identification, like ear notching for pigs. And then we're going to come out to the ag center, and we're going to look at pig ear notching, and they're going to try to read the pig's ear notch from that pig. So a lot of times it's like that real-world experience, that hands-on experience, but also kind of combining it and having an equal balance of projects, hands-on, and lessons. I think it's really big on having equal balance. That's probably my number one strategy, is like balance everything out so it covers everybody.
Yeah, even going into an ag class, knowing I love agriculture, I definitely love the hands-on learning. It definitely is better than just sitting in the math class, working in a book, or writing an essay in your English class. And that's the class I've always looked forward to because, we're going to the barn and we don't have to sit inside and do book work. That's always what I've looked forward to all day. So how could you say that agriculture education can help solve some problems in the world, but more your communities?
Okay. So obviously we know that agriculture feeds and clothes us and gives us our shelter, the basic human needs, food, fiber, shelter, right? But I think that it starts in the classroom. So whether it's hands-on, whether it's a project, whether it's a lesson, they're hopefully learning something and taking something out of your class each day, whether it was one thing that you said or the entire lesson you said. And that could immediately spark an interest. So, like, if we talked about cattle one day, like, maybe they're like, ooh, that sounds actually kind of interesting. I actually really enjoyed that lesson. So I think about every day I have the opportunity to make someone understand agriculture and enjoy agriculture and work in an agriculture field. And so I kind of look at it and I'm like, whether they're going to be a baker, like, well, how are they going to bake, where their ingredients come from. Like, the kids that I teach in my class are the ones who are going out and who are becoming the next generation of agriculture industry workers, farmers, people who work at the USDA, anything. I have one kid who's really interested in making his own clothing brand, like that, ag field, because he is taking materials and he's making clothes. So I think for me, it's like I'm teaching the next generation of people who are going to be out in the community doing jobs is kind of how I see it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. What about you, Monica?
Can you say the question
All
again?
right. It says, how do you think agriculture education can help the world or your community?
So the way I think that agriculture education helps just the community in general is specifically when students do their SAE projects. I feel like they're so versatile. Like, I know some people are fabricating their own dog houses and selling them and things like that, while other people are like managing forests through forestry, things like that. Some people are raising their own livestock. Some people are planting gardens, a community garden, things like that for their SAE projects. I think that's really the one thing in agriculture education that helps so many students, just because even if you don't know a lot about it, like, putting it to work, you get to see the effort that it makes and the change that it makes in your own communities, especially when you do community projects and things like that.
Alrighty. So, Monica, what does your college schedule look like?
Right now, I'm commuting to ABAC Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm taking statistics, biology. I have a biology lab, and animal science.
All right. So, Miss Putman, how would this compare to your schedule when you were in college?
Okay, so my schedule's a little different. So I graduated high school with my degree, with my associate's degree. So I got all of my core classes out of the way. Um, so my schedule, and I tried to pack it, like really pack it in there. Um, my first semester at school, I did have to take a biology, and I did have to take a statistics. I had Roger Harden. He was so hard to understand. He wore two masks, and he has a really thick accent. Could not understand a word that man said. Sorry if you're listening. And then, so I had statistics and biology, and then I had a health class. So that was my first semester. And then I had an education class, and I think that was it for my first semester. But I think I had like 5 or 6 classes every semester. I tried to make my schedule as large as possible because I wanted to get in as much as possible so I could get done sooner. There was so much that I wanted to learn. So, like, I wanted to learn about ag mech. I wanted to learn about horticulture. I wanted to learn about animal science. So, and every summer I would take 2 classes. So like one summer I took all of the P through 5 classes with Andrew Thorne. Those are a struggle. So I am P through 5 endorsed. So I did take all of those. And then my last semester, which bless your heart because it's coming. Your last semester at ABAC is your hardest, or I guess your second to last semester is your hardest because your last semester is student teaching. But you will have a bunch of different classes, and they are not easy. They are preparing you for the class, and it is a lot. And you have to do a bunch of extra, like there's something called Pick 10, where you have to pick 10 activities throughout the semester and go to them, and on top of all your classes and on top of all the extracurricular. But I will say you learn the most. But so yeah, my schedule is very, very packed. So, and I can't even remember because it was so long ago. But I do remember my last one, and it was very, very stressful.
I will say that I did take a lot of dual enrollment when I was here at the high school. That's why I kind of decided to take it a little slower once I'm there. That way I can actually like go to the clubs and stuff, because my freshman year, I was just like you, jam-packed.
Yeah.
And I had like almost no time to go to the clubs that I wanted to go to. I could barely make it to some meetings. And I feel like that kind of like hindered me from like meeting new people, making new connections. That's why I decided to like take it slow. I did take summer classes to still make up for it, technically in my eyes, but.
Yeah. So recently, Georgia FFA started an Ag Ed competition. And I say recently, but that was like, I want to say like 3-4 years ago, maybe something like that. So how do you think that Ag Ed competition will help better prepare these kids? So I know you, Monica, have competed in Ag Ed. So could you like share your experience in that?
So I did compete in Ag Ed, and I went to state both times. I got first in the preliminaries both times, and then I got second my first year and third my second year. And I will say that competition really prepared me, because it teaches you everything. Like, I had the rubric memorized, and it teaches you from the second you walk in the door how to teach your class. You have to review what you learned yesterday. You have to make a PowerPoint about. You have to include your objectives for the day. What are we learning today? You have to make it interactive. What if a student has an IEP or a 504? Different things like that. So I think that really prepared me. And now, like, I feel like I know more vocabulary terms when it comes to my education classes and things like that. It was definitely a lot of fun, because my first year I taught it was a lesson on pollinators, and it was supposed to be to third graders. But when you get in the actual competition, you're teaching college students. So I had to teach these college students like they were third graders. And it was definitely harder just because they, like, an elementary schooler is going to be a lot more like jittery and excited, and college students are more serious about their stuff. So you definitely have to bring the energy to the room, especially with like elementary ag. That's what I learned. I think that competition really prepares students just to see how things can change, because in my mind, before I even like practiced teaching the lessons to classes, it went one way, you know. It goes this very perfect way, but when you're actually teaching the lesson, maybe you give them a minute and one student's taking a little longer. It delays the way things went in my mind. And I think that's the reality of teaching, is that you have to be able to adapt to new situations every single second, just because that's how life is.
Yeah. So I really like that competition. It's going to be my second year competing this year. And last year they made it an area competition, and you presented to the panel of judges. But this year they changed it. So this year you're going to present to students and the panel, and they're going to judge you on the same things that you mentioned. And I really like that competition. It's one that I'm very passionate about, and I really do love it. But moving on, were there any, not necessarily any moments, but is there anything that you wish you knew before you started your college classes for Ag Ed, or before you started your first year teaching?
I guess my biggest thing, before my first year teaching, I knew it was coming. I don't want to say it was something I didn't know it was coming. I guess I just didn't expect it as much as it was. So you always talk about, you always hear people talk about like all the extra things ag teachers do. And we do a lot. So part of the Ag Ed competition is knowing your POW. And our POW is jam-packed, and it is very busy. But one thing that nobody really talks about and nobody teaches you how to handle is all the extra stuff you have to do for the school. So we have all the stuff that we have to do as teachers in our classroom and all the stuff we have to do for Ag Ed. But then there's like a whole nother list that you have to do for the school. So like there's obviously like faculty meetings, and those aren't hard because, you know, we're told like, and we just have to kind of go and sit and like listen and observe and talk about and all that. But there are little things like making sure your lesson plans are turned in on time, which obviously in college you'll have to do. But some schools don't require lesson plans. Ware County, we do. My last school, we didn't. Like when I was student teaching, we didn't have. They didn't require lesson plans, but my ag ed class did. There's a bunch of like little meetings that we have to go to called professional learning. So as teachers, like we are constantly relearning and revamping, because there's always a different way to teach something and always a different way to learn. So we're always going to learning, like professional learning classes, which is something that I was like, oh, I didn't know we had to do. So there's like a bunch of little things as teachers that we have to do that nobody really talks about, because it all depends on your school system that you go to. Like, what activities you have to participate in. Do you have to help out in different areas of the school? What do you have to chaperone? Like, poor Mr. Renshaw, he has to go and he has to chaperone homecoming this weekend. I have to do prom later on. And like, I was like, oh, I didn't know I had to do that. Yeah. So those are just some things that like you don't really think about until you're in the school that you're going to be in, and they're like, hey, have you turned this in yet? And you're like, oh, what was that? So.
Yep. I would definitely say I think prom is more chill than homecoming. Yep. So Renshaw's going to have a blast.
Sure is.
So how do you think your community or a school system can better help to support your Ag Ed program?
Well, the first thing is I don't think FFA would be anything without our community. Like, prime example, we're doing our pork chop plate sale right now. If we didn't have a community to sell to, we would not make as much money as we did. Or fingers crossed, we're hoping to make. So it's really hard to have a successful ag program if you don't have a community to sell to. Pork chop plates, plant sale, on your POW, it talks about you have to have a advisory committee, a livestock committee. There's a bunch of those different areas that you have to have people to come and support you. And if you don't have an advisory committee, then you're not meeting part of your POW, which means you don't get to keep your job. So, or, well, you have to explain why. But that's proving to the state of Georgia why we get, as ag teachers, get paid extra. So it doesn't look very good if you don't have an advisory committee, and if you don't have a community willing to be part of your advisory committee, your livestock committee, your alumni, then you're not. I don't want to say you're not going to be successful, but it's harder to be successful.
What about you, Monica?
Can you repeat the question?
All right. It says, how do you think schools and communities can better support ag ed programs?
Well, I will definitely say, like, with the funding and everything, like the pork chop plate sale and the plant sale, that's a very big deal. But mostly, to me, it's more important to have those, like, everlasting relationships with different businesses and companies and just people in general. Like, to go out to the pork chop plate sales, you have to have those relationships. They have to know a little bit about agriculture and FFA to even, like, consider it. So that way they know that it's not just money going to waste, if that makes sense. Just getting to know the people in your community better, I think that's what builds a strong community. The relationships that you build with people.
Yep.
And really big on that is, like, she mentioned it, what can, like, our FFA program do to help our community? That's another big part of it, of, like, community is, like, us as an FFA program, we want to be out in our community making those connections. So part of that is, like, it's not just about money, but if you do something for your community, you are then becoming part of your community and showing those FFA members what they can do for their community. So that's a big part.
Yeah, we used to be, or not used to be, we are big on community projects. We redid the landscaping on a church one year. That was my freshman year. And also freshman year, the past 2 years, we've been helping out the Okefenokee Swamp, getting rid of those invasive species that need to be there and helping them with a new little, I don't necessarily know how to say it, but like attraction area that they're building. And we helped with that. We didn't get paid. We didn't do nothing. But I know when we go back to the park, we're going to see all the hard work that we did, and we're going to be proud of what we did. So wrapping up, I have one last thing to ask y'all. What advice would you give to somebody who is considering being an ag education teacher?
I would definitely say, if you're even just considering it, I feel like just do it. Like, oh wait, I'm stealing that from Nike. I'm sorry. But just learning about it, like, I'm not sure, like, how you could go about that other than, like, student teaching is, like, seeing it. But I know some people, like, you did a camp over the summer, and you were that leadership position, and you were in charge of teaching the students things about agriculture and church and things like that. I think if you're definitely considering it, try to get some experience in it. That way you can definitely know if it's for you or if it's not. Because teaching is not for everybody. I will say that. Especially with my education classes, I've learned that some teachers didn't include students the way they should have, or taught students the way, like, in a better way than they could have. Because, in reality, there are some teachers who just read off of a PowerPoint and expect you to learn it, And I really like those teachers that they come in and they're pumped up about their day, they're ready to teach you, and they bring a lot to the table, if that makes sense. So if you get experience and you actually like it and you think that you can change these students' lives, because you will. You are a big part of their lives as a teacher. I think getting your experience is the way to go.
Yep.
I guess the biggest thing is teaching is not for everybody. It's really not, and I think that is one thing that they like in ABAC they will preach to you, like, teaching is not for everybody. You might think you want to do it. You have to be so patient and very, I don't want to say prepared, but you need to have like my lesson plans sometimes are on sticky notes. So I don't mean prepared like that, but you need to be prepared each day mentally for the challenge. And I'm not going to say, like, if you want to be an ag ed, like, you're not going to get rich. Like, this is, like, if you're looking for a job to get rich, this is not it. Don't be a teacher. Go somewhere else. But it is the most rewarding job I can honestly say to me, and hopefully to every other ag teacher out there. I get to see students' lives changed every day. Whether it's that light bulb that clicks with them, whether it's like today we took a little quiz on like what would my ag job be if it was if I wanted to do ag. Mine said ag education, like that was, or it said a field in like a teaching field, and then it was like veterinarian, which I could not do. But it's very rewarding to see that light bulb finally click. And I'm another big part of ag ed is we don't always get the A students all the time. We get those students who are going to do those hard jobs like welding. We're going to get the students that are going to have mechanics. They might not understand what a book says, but they're going to understand how to take apart a lawnmower piece by piece and be able to put it back together after one time of taking it apart. But every day I get to see that light bulb click with those students. I get to see those brains turning. And that, I would say, is probably the most rewarding part of my job, seeing those students learn and understand that if they would not be here without ag. And it's just really good that I get to change their lives. And one day I'll get to see them go, and I'll get to see them, whether they go in the ag field or not, whether they become a lawyer or a farmer. That job is really cool. So
I will say that if you are considering ag ed, do something to make sure that it is your passion.
Yeah.
Because like she said, it's not the biggest moneymaker, but I feel like I've heard a couple stories of some people who major in ag ed and become teachers, but it's totally different than what they had imagined, and they get burnt out easily.
very.
And I feel like that's a big issue in education as a whole right now, why so many teachers are getting burnt out. So make sure that it is your passion. Make sure that you do want to do this. And like, it is a very rewarding job. Like, the reason I'm doing it is because I want to change students' lives. Because my ag teachers changed my life for the better. And I just want to be that person in somebody else's life. So make sure that it is your passion before you just go for it, because if it's not, then you're just kind of wasting your time.
Yeah, and like you said, get practice in before you do that teaching job. Like, maybe if you're considering it at high school like I am, maybe ask to get a teaching role in those fifth or kindergarten ag days, you know. See how kids are, how teaching a class is. I mean, you can teach, a lot can happen in those 5 minutes that you're teaching kids. You got kids running over here, kids running over here. You got to get them focused on you and what you're saying to get the knowledge to them.
Yeah. And college isn't cheap. I mean, college is not cheap. Whether you go to ABAC or you go to UGA, like, college, no matter what, is not cheap. And like, before I started teaching and before I went in my final like few semesters of ag ed, I was a AmeriCorps for 4-H, and I went into 5th grade classrooms and I taught 45-minute lessons, and I loved it. But I don't want to say don't waste your money, but you are. If you are going to go 4 years in college, and then, I mean, I have friends now who I graduated with, and they're hating it. And you know what? They thought they wanted to do it, but they didn't enjoy student teaching. They didn't enjoy going and teaching classes at the middle school when we were doing that for our class. And so, like, those little signs, like, yeah, it's okay to change your major. If it's not for you, it is okay to change your major. So I had a friend, it was her second to last semester in college, and she was like, ag ed is just not for me. And so she changed it. And there are ways that your advisor when you're in college, like you have a advisor who tells you what classes to take to help you like graduate. Um, Talk to them because they can take the classes that you have taken and find another class that will accept those courses if you know it's not for you. But if you're still on the fence and you're like, oh, I don't know, find some way somehow to get that experience. Like that is my number one like piece of advice is like if you are not sure before you spend the money 4 years in college, just double check that it really is for you.
Yep, that is important because, like you said, college ain't free, and
College ain't cheap.
you're not gonna get those years back either. But I really enjoyed having y'all on here today, and I enjoy y'all making the trip and taking the time out of y'all's day to be on the podcast today. And thank you guys for watching or listening, and make sure to follow all of our social media. And again, thank you for watching or listening.